Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. We just passed 750 subs. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and I hope I can continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, former Kentucky guard C.J. Fredrick has decided to transfer to the Cincinnati Bearcats. This is a big addition for Cincinnati basketball because they're going to be entering the Big 12 on July 1st, 2023, and it's going to be a big awakening for the Bearcats once they do, because the level of competition is going to increase by a lot, and overall Cincinnati needs a lot of talent on the roster if they're going to be able to want to compete in that conference next season. But I do think C.J. Fredrick is a good addition for Wes Miller and the Cincinnati Bearcats, and I'm going to go over how big of an addition it could possibly be and potential drawbacks that C.J. Fredrick does bring by transferring over to Cincinnati. Now, C.J. Fredrick, he's a really interesting player to evaluate. He is a 6'3", 185-pound guard, but his career did not start with the Kentucky Wildcats. He was a former Iowa Hawkeye guard, and when he was a freshman, he averaged 10 points per game, and some people were expecting him to take a big sophomore leap in his sophomore year for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Maybe not as big of a leap as Keegan and Chris Murray did for Iowa, and Luka Garza as well, but he was supposed to be a guy that could potentially have been an NBA player, but unfortunately in his second season at Iowa, he had some injury issues. He only averaged around 7 points per game. And health has been the biggest problem for C.J. Fredrick throughout his college career. And he missed a whole season of college basketball between when he transferred from Iowa over to Kentucky. He missed a whole season. He did not play basketball for over a year because he has not been healthy. And if he's not going to be healthy at Cincinnati, then his addition is not going to be too good for the Cincinnati Bearcats. But he still is a player that has a lot of upside. Last season for Kentucky, he only averaged 6.1 points per game, 0.8 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. So he is a player that did not have a big impact for the Wildcats last season, but he is a guy that can score the basketball at a high level, especially when he gets hot from three. He shot 35.1% from the field last season for Kentucky, 31.8% from the three-point line, and 91.7% from the free throw line. So at the very least, he's going to be a guy that can shoot free throws at a high level for Cincinnati next year. And at the end of games, having a guy that can shoot that well at the line is always so important for a basketball team. So C.J. Fredrick's free throw shooting could be important for Cincinnati next year. He did shoot a lot better from the three-point line when he was at Iowa than he did at Kentucky. I think being out of college basketball for a while definitely hurt C.J. Fredrick's momentum, being able to improve as a player. He is a guy that does have some off-the-dribble game, but he is more of a spot-up shooter, but he can go off the dribble, but he definitely stopped showing a lot of that skill set after his injury history. So hopefully he can regain his confidence at Cincinnati and be able to regain the form he had at Iowa as a freshman before he had a lot of injuries, because he was a really solid player that had a lot of NBA upside, but unfortunately health has been a big problem for him. He has not been healthy throughout his college career. Injuries have derailed his career, and if he's not healthy next season for Cincinnati, or if he does not have a big impact next year overall, only averaging around 6 points per game again, then he's probably not going to be the greatest addition in the world for Cincinnati. But overall, being able to get a guy that did play for the Kentucky Wildcats, he was surrounded by tons of talent. Maybe that also impacted his scoring a bit as well. He'll be playing for Cincinnati where there probably is not as much talent on the roster, so maybe his points per game will increase. And again, at the very least, he's a great free throw shooter, and he is capable of knocking down threes. So I do think this is a big addition for Cincinnati to be able to land a player from Kentucky and a guy in C.J. Fredrick that still has a lot of upside, even though injuries have really hurt his career. And Wes Miller, he's been a solid coach for Cincinnati so far. They went 23-13 last year, and they made the NIT, but Cincinnati's a proud program. They want to win a lot more games than that, and if they want to have success in the Big 12 next season, it's going to be really tough if they can't get some more players. But Micah Adams-Woods, he's back. He's a player that averaged around 9 points per game for Cincinnati this past season. I think his re-addition will be solid for Cincinnati. He's definitely a good guard. Jamil Reynolds is already a transfer portal addition for the Cincinnati Bearcats. So C.J. Fredrick is the second player that Cincinnati's bringing in. Jamil Reynolds is coming in from Temple. He's a forward that averaged around 8 to 9 points per game for the Temple Owls this past season. I definitely think he could be a guy that can step in and have a lot of success at the 4 spot. I don't know if he'll start. He could for Cincinnati, but I think that is a good addition as well for Cincinnati next season. Landers Nolley II, he is gone. That is really tough because he was a great player. Jarrett Hensley, he's in the transfer portal. He did not have a big impact this past season. Jeremiah Davenport, he's gone as well. But Jizzle James and Rayvon Griffith are 2 4-star recruits that Wes Miller is bringing in, and I think that's where the bread and butter of Cincinnati's success could be next season, is if C.J. Fredrick is a guy that can come in and step up and shoot the basketball at a high level next year and be a lot better than he was at Kentucky this past season. And if the 2 4-star freshmen for Cincinnati can come in and play at a high level right out of the gate, then I think that overall Cincinnati could have success next season, because Jizzle James and Rayvon Griffith are both really talented players that a lot lot of programs wanted in college basketball, but Cincinnati and Wes Miller were able to land both. Those were big additions for the Bearcats. Adi Iguano, he is back, and that's another really solid player returning for the Cincinnati Bearcats. And you also have Victor Latkin. He's coming back as well. So Cincinnati does not have a bad roster coming back. There are some solid pieces returning. Two really great four-star recruits coming in, and two transfer portal players in Jamil Reynolds and CJ Fredrick coming in. You also are losing David DeJulius and Rob Finney and Kalu Ezike, so they're losing three other really good seniors there. So Cincinnati's roster is in a lot of flux, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Wes Miller can be able to pair in all of this talent that is returning and the new talent with the high school freshmen and the transfers that Cincinnati is bringing to put it all together to potentially have a great basketball team next season. But I do think that the potential is there for Cincinnati to be able to transition to the Big 12 and have some success. Will they be able to make the tournament and be a great team next year? I don't know about that. I still think they're going to have to bring in some more really good transfers overall, and it is possible that Cincinnati can do that because they're going to have that name appeal now of being in the Big 12. And Cincinnati, they have a proud fan base. They are a really good program overall. Mick Cronin had them rolling for a long time, but now he's at UCLA, and Cincinnati has taken a step back since he has gone on to the UCLA Bruins. But I am liking some of these pieces that Cincinnati has coming back. Mike Adams-Woods, I think, is a really solid player, and I think that overall Jizzle James and Rayvon Griffith will be able to slide and maybe have a lot of success next season for Cincinnati. And if you can get really good contributions from Jamil Reynolds, who was a solid transfer portal addition from the Temple Owls, being a guy that can really bang down low, and pair next to Victor Latkin, I think that both players will be good in the post for Cincinnati. I don't know if they'll be able to hang with some of the best bigs in the Big 12, but I think they will have some success. But CJ Fredrick, he is that wild card. If he stays healthy for Cincinnati next season, then the Kentucky transfer will be a really good addition for Wes Miller because he's definitely a guy that Cincinnati needs. A really good three-point shooter, a great free throw shooter at the end of games. That would be huge for Cincinnati to have. And if CJ Fredrick can stay healthy and be able to prove himself at Cincinnati, maybe average 10, 11 points per game, maybe his NBA dream will not be gone. Maybe he'll still have a chance to be able to go pro. And if Wes Miller can get him to the next level, I think that would really be a good sign for the Cincinnati program, bode well for potential future great players to want to go to Cincinnati because Wes Miller did a great job with CJ Fredrick. It will be interesting to see how good of a job CJ Fredrick does next season. I think that his upside is through the roof. He still has a lot of potential to be great next year for Cincinnati, but it also could be a big drawback as well if he's not able to stay healthy and he's not shooting the basketball at a high level and he's not very confident. Confidence seemed to be an issue for CJ Fredrick when he was at Kentucky this past season, but he's getting a fresh start at Cincinnati, his third team, and if he can regain his Iowa form back when he was a freshman and before he had all these injuries, and if CJ Fredrick plays really well for Cincinnati next season, then I think this is a great addition for the Cincinnati Bearcats and Wes Miller, and potentially could help the Bearcats make the transition a little bit easier going to the Big 12 next season. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about CJ Fredrick transferring from Kentucky to Cincinnati, and whether you think CJ Fredrick can regain his form that he had at Iowa pre-injury in his college career and have a lot of success for the Bearcats next season, and how good of a job you think Wes Miller is doing in the transfer portal and in this offseason overall for Cincinnati. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.